The light snuck in around the edges of the darkened window and streaked across Betsy's face. Her angled bed allowed her to reach out and snap up the blinds. She jumped. Every single time. They scared the innards out of her. That and the rattle of the city jarred her bones awake and infused her with energy. She sat up and looked out at Larrabee Street and thought of home yet again. They'd be well into fishing now, and she'd have her back near broke from being in the stage, spreading fish. Sorry. Hey, where are you? That's my cat. Sophia, do you want to come get the cat? Yeah. Thank you. They'd be well into fishing now, and she'd have her back near broke from being in the stage, spreading fish, caring for youngsters, planting, weeding, mending, cooking, cleaning, bringing the youngsters of others into the world. The bloom of the sun that would rise and set with interminable beauty and consistency would be the pyre of dreariness upon which life was built and burnt out. Out her window the cars below moved along. The people walked with purpose, always rushed. Everybody had somewhere to go, and fast. Bridie's young niece was coming to watch the boys while she went out to meet buyers for her work. She pulled the blind back down and hooked it, her reverie about the past gone and her focus fully on the day's task. Betsy picked up the scribbler on the table beside her bed, sat on top of the blankets, sorted the pillows behind her back, leaned back, and read the notes she'd written the night before. They still indicated, even if her tidy scrawl didn't say it outright, that she was in a hell of a mess. The draw to quit, to go home, head hung low, was large in moments. But while she missed the smell of the juniper and blackberry bushes that now crawled green around the hills and the sound of the ocean battering itself endlessly against the shore, she did not miss knowing that every step she took only led nowhere. Betsy dropped the book and pulled the pins out of her hair and deposited them into a little box. The tiny curls sprung in ringlets, and she moved each one into place. She dressed in the same outfit that she had worn to church. She cleaned her face and added lipstick and rouge. Her lashes were long and curled up around her eyelids. She smiled into the small hand mirror, checked her white teeth. She'd always kept them clean with ashes back home and never had any of the decay many of the locals experienced. Her mother hadn't either, and good teeth seemed to be one of their blessings. There were no ashes to use here, so she made do. She'd seen a brush and 2 tubes of Colgate on sale, but that was a luxury that at 47 cents she couldn't justify. Bridie's niece Sally was happy to entertain the 2 boys while their mother went off to work. "That is a nice dress, Mrs. Elliott. Auntie said you're a genius with the needle and the designs, but I never thought it'd be that nice," she said, sizing Betsy up. "Thank you, my love. You call me Aunt Betsy. All the younger crowd do where I come from. I have everything all set for the day. I hope they'll listen to you. Come on now, give your mom a kiss," she said, and hugged her 2 youngsters hard. So that's a little taste of Betsy in Boston starting out. And it's at the very it's chapter 8, but it's at the very beginning of when she's starting her new life in Boston. I see we have quite a few people on here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for popping in. That was chapter 8, and I'm going to skip ahead to chapter 13, and I'm going to read the entire chapter. In the first book, you're introduced to Betsy and her family in, her husband and the children and the people that are in her community there. Now she's in Boston and she's meeting new people, but she has come to Boston with Edmund. And Edmund's family, she hasn't met them yet until chapter 13. So, and some of that's because Edmund's being a little bit strange since they got back to Boston, and she's not all that pleased with him, but they're still friends. And so anyway, chapter 13 happens, and this changes a lot of things. So I'm just going to start reading that and talk about, and she always thinks of home, because we do when we go away. I can guarantee you we do. Without the broad green meadows of Elliott's Cove to muck about in, George and Richard grew bored with increasing frequency. At this time of the year, George would be helping with the work himself back home, and the energy of two children trapped without industry could have caused trouble for Betsy. Fortunately, both boys had their father's quiet ways and not their mother's intensity and energy, so paper and pencil satisfied to a great degree. The knock was a relief, though. After all, drawing could be done any time, but visitors were a rare occurrence. A tiny woman stood in the doorway, her demeanor nervous. "You're Mrs. Elliott?" a voice with a distinct upper-class Boston brogue inquired. "Yes," Betsy responded. Her heart quickened, and she didn't know why. This diminutive and oddly anxious woman hardly appeared threatening. "I'm Edmund Taylor's mother. May I come in?" "Mrs. Taylor?" She didn't have the countenance of an overbearing mother, as Edmund generally implied, but a bog on the marsh looked like solid ground, yet it could grab hold and drag a horse down with little mercy. So you never knew. "Yes, I apologize for stopping by." "No, please come in. George, Richard, this is Uncle Edmund's mother, Mrs. Taylor." Such handsome boys, so quiet. Edmund was a wild boy at that age. He was? This flew in the face of all she knew about the grown-up version. "Oh, yes, not having a father? It was hard by myself. Yet you're here on your own. I'm sorry, that is too forward. Your situation, I should not have... No, we should talk of it. No back doors with me. But let me straighten out some tea and perhaps sort the boys out in the room first." "Oh, certainly. I brought them books and puzzles. Will that help? Oh, and toy horses. I love horses, and I thought they might like them too." There's always a horse in every story. The boys rushed over and stopped short to wait politely while they were presented with the gifts. Once they had expressed their excited gratitude, Betsy took Richard and George by the hand and led them to their bedroom and set them up with a promise of a piece of cream pie later if they stayed quiet. Now, tea set, Betsy sat across from Mrs. Taylor, who gave her a wan smile. "I know you've been too busy to come meet me, as Edmund has said, and I should have waited, but..." "Edmund said you didn't want to meet me, that you were angry I came instead of Mary, that you wanted me to go into service in New Jersey, and that you were upset I didn't take the job." "New Jersey? What? I did not." The nervousness fled her face and her eyes grew big. "Yes, I knew of a job, and I told Edmund to tell you of the opportunity in case you were interested, but I was never angry. I don't understand." "I think I do." The sting of Edmund's lies hammered at her eyelids, and there was only one reason he would lie to her: shame. Ashamed of what they'd done, and worse, of her. Anger brewed in her. He'd encouraged her, invited her here, and now? Now he was trying to keep her from meeting his mother? "Well, anyway, I got tired of waiting. Your boys are nice. I thought, since you were tangled up with Edmund, we should get to know each other." "Mrs. Taylor, call me Eleanor, please." "Eleanor, that's right. People called her Leaner back home. Such a fashion they had of changing people's names. Selina Sharp had always been Slainer as well. Lavinia Torval was Lovey. Glad she had an ordinary name like Betsy." "Yes, Eleanor. First of all, you should know that I'm not after your son. In my situation, it's hardly good for me to be tied to a man. I'd prefer people think of me as by myself. Much as I'm grateful for Edmund for what he'd done, there's no need to worry there'll be more to it than that. At least not now. I left because my boys, well, I wanted them to have more than what I saw back home. But I thought everybody said... Yeah, well, I suppose that's the idea everybody got when I took off, because they don't know the rights of it. But I left more because of what John did than because me and Edmund were to be together. And as I said, the boys. It's hard on youngsters back there. One died just before I left. Did you know that?" Edmund mentioned that. Many children died. They died here too, though not so much. "It's still bad?" "It's bad. I have done my best, but so did Mervina Bailey, and that didn't help her poor Charlie. And then I left, and, well, Edmund helped me along with you and all of your friends, and I appreciate everything in this apartment, and especially the sewing machine. You forget what people back home says. More stories back home told than is in the Boston Public Library. People everywhere likes their talk, but small place talk is like a pot of angry stew simmering all the time, and every day they throw something in. I suppose I was the turnip they chopped up and boiled the day I left. I know you've been away for a long time, but surely you remember that much." Yes. Eleanor Taylor shifted in her seat, not wanting to say bad things about the town she'd fled with her son so long ago. She'd had good people take care of her there, but then others? How they had whispered about her and her incompetence and snobbishness when all she'd been was 16 and innocent. You left soon after your husband died," Betsy said. "Yes, and well, I guess I could have stayed, but it was so hard, and I wasn't suited for it, Mrs. Elliott." "Oh, Betsy, my name is Betsy." "Oh, Betsy, yes. Well, it was hard, as I said. Winter time, I never got warm. Summer was back-breaking from dusk until dawn. You know, I understand why you left, why anybody does. All that work and barely a penny to be made. I know one thing I learned. Hard work don't make people rich, because if it did, Newfoundlanders would all be as rich as Carnegie, and knowing the way you all are, you'd give it all away like he did too. Betsy, it was barely human, what people have to do just to stay alive. I just couldn't bear it." "How did you wind up there in the first place?" "My family here in Boston was connected on father's side, so one summer we went for a visit. 'Tis deceiving, you know. Summer so pretty and bright, with sunsets that reach from one end of the sky to the other, stars at night you can almost touch from the ground. Oh, I loved it so much. I was young, barely 16, foolish and romantic, and I spied a young fisherman, handsomest man I ever did see, laying out a net on the ground to dry. He spotted me too, and from then on we were inseparable. And when the time came to leave, I nearly broke apart at the thought. I loved him so." Her eyes sparkled with the memory. "So we contrived a plan. I said I was expecting, and that was that. We had to be married." "You weren't?" "No, I didn't really ever tell anybody that before." She lowered her head, looking nervous. "I won't breathe a word, I promise," Betsy said. She wouldn't either. Well, perhaps she'd tell Bridie, maybe Molly, but that was it. "I don't think you will. After all, we all have secrets, don't we?" "We do?" What did that mean? Edmund could be raging stupid at times. "It's just that you're pretending to be a widow, and, oh, don't get me wrong, I think that's wise. You'll have an easier time if you don't tell people you're still married. None of our family and friends know anything different. I'm the only one with connections back there that knows the truth. I didn't want to make Edmund look bad either. You know, his father's family are rich and control his money." "Yes, at least they did. And they had somebody else in mind for me before I married, a wealthy man even higher up than they are. They're the working wealthy, professionals like judges and lawyers, but these people, they were the upper crust, one of the Emersons, you know, came on the Mayflower types." Betsy nodded. She had read all she could on Boston and American history. She knew that the people who founded this city sometimes considered themselves special. Oliver Wendell Holmes had called them the Brahmin, after the highest class of caste system of the Hindus of India. It was those fancy people that she wanted to buy her dresses. "My family was so mad when I got married and stayed there. Then when my husband," her voice cracked a bit, but she carried on, "passed away, well, Edmund was just a boy and I was lost. I would have died there by myself. I never fit in, never had the strength for it. You have to be born and raised to it, I think. And grief is a heavy load, too." "Well, at least they took you back." Betsy thought of her friend Julie and how hard her life had been after her husband died. Well, it had been hard before, but that was a different kind of hard. "Only if I took back the Taylor name and gave it to Edmund. He has fulfilled all the requirements now, though. Got his trust fund from his uncle and is independent. If he wanted to marry you, he could. But I can't, even if I wanted to marry him." "He says he won't marry Katrina, though," Eleanor said. Betsy's heart jumped. "Who is Katrina?" "He didn't tell you? Oh my, I should have kept quiet. She was the girl he was courting until he went away. She still wants him, I think. Perhaps if you don't... Well, if she's what he wants, I won't stop him. No worries there." Betsy fumed. A girlfriend? He'd never even breathed a word of it. And what was this Katrina like? What a fancy name she had, too. She'd be called Treener back home, but still. Jealousy sluiced through her. I'm sorry, Betsy. I didn't want to cause trouble. I only wanted to come by and get to know you. I know I said it was hard back then, but it wasn't all bad. I found friends there, and I think of them and remember how happy I was for a while. You don't forget the paradise where you fall in love, do you? No, nor the hell where you lose it either, I imagine. Betsy picked up the teacup, and Eleanor smiled and did the same. Eleanor, could you do something for me? Why, yes, whatever helps. I'd like you to keep my life here secret. Let people back home think I'm just a serving girl. I would like the boys to be free from connection to people from home. Let them have their fresh start, if you ever happen to be in touch with anyone. Secrets had a way of piling up like quilts on a bed in a Newfoundland February, stacked so high and heavy you could hardly breathe. But if they kept you from dying a slow, cold death, they were worth their weight on your bones. I understand how it feels to be under the constant scrutiny of judgmental people. So yes, I'll keep your life to myself. I do hope to see you from time to time, however, and these children of yours. They chatted further, and then the children joined them, excited to talk with the pretty little lady who gave them horses and told them they were perfect before she left. Eleanor's visit shook Betsy. Things felt out of sorts, uneven, like a boat with a crooked keel. She'd been jarred off course by it. Edmund had been dishonest on several fronts, something that was painful in its unexpectedness. She had trusted him completely. Anger surged through her. He most certainly had some things to answer for.